Hey everyone, welcome to my growing garden. I thought I would do another garden tour today, and I'm going to start with the front yard because I didn't show it to you last time. So the trees that you see behind me here are part of my orchard garden. My plan is to eventually have this whole area filled with edible and ornamental fruit trees. So let's take a look at what we got. This is a Honeycrisp apple tree. It's a dwarf variety. They're my favorite apples. As you can tell, the tree is still quite small. And I think the maximum height, if I remember correctly, is 6 feet. So it's not going to get too much bigger than it is right now. You can tell that I have wrapped the tree or put some posts in to protect it. As soon as we planted this tree, the deer went right for it and stripped all the bottom leaves off the bottom branches. So this is just going to be kept here over the summer and going into the winter as well because we have so many deer in our yard. And then going this way, this tree here is a Princess K plum. It's an ornamental. I wish I got a picture of it in the spring because it was just covered in these beautiful white flowers, just absolutely covered. The whole thing was white. So it was really pretty, which is why we bought it. But it's an ornamental, so it's going to attract a lot of birds once the fruit develop. The fruit didn't develop on this one. It's its first year and probably went through a little bit of shock once we planted it. But it's a beautiful tree. And once again, we wrap this one just to make sure that the deer don't get to it. And then in this little hole, there was a tree. I can't remember what variety. It was a crab apple of some sort that we had planted last year, but unfortunately it just died. I think it was actually dead when we got it from the garden center. It never budded out, didn't have any leaves last summer at all. So we returned it and we got this Princess K plum instead. So the plan is for next year we'll replace this and put a new tree there. I'm hoping to have an apricot tree at one point if we can put it here, but I think apricots need 2 trees so that they can cross-pollinate, so we'll have to get 2 of those. When you're in zone 3, there are options for fruit trees, but you do have to be really careful about which varieties you buy because some of them will not, stay alive in -40. And then this is the first tree that we planted at our property. It is a little sad. There's just a couple, you can see here, just a couple little leaves on the tree. All of the branches unfortunately died over the winter. I think it's because we had some warm days in the spring and then we got another cold winter, like a little cold blast, and it might have just killed off those branches that had warmed up from the spring. But yeah, the garden center said that it could come back, so we just pruned off some of the dead branches. It looks good. We've been watering it lots, so hopefully next spring, even if we don't get any apples on this, I think this is a cherry, actually, if I'm not mistaken. It's an ornamental though, so we won't eat anything off of this anyways. But as long as it's alive next winter, that would be great. And for those who caught my wine cap video, this is the wine cap bed that I planted in the spring. I don't know if you say that you plant mushrooms or not, but this is the bed that I put the spawn into. No mushrooms yet, but if you look under here, you definitely see some spawn, like right here. You can see that. So it is there. Oh, there's a big batch of spawn right there. So I've been trying to keep it covered and moist, and I'm still hoping for a harvest in the fall. We haven't gotten any rain in the last 10 days. I can hear thunder. I'm really hoping that it rains today. Here's the bee yard. You can see there the bees are bearding because they're so hot. It's very warm today. And I have my basket ready because I think I'm going to be harvesting some stuff today. All right. So the potato patch looks amazing. This is my first year growing potatoes, so I have nothing to compare it to, but this looks like a pretty good patch of potatoes to me. And the most exciting thing is there are flowers on, which one? Here we go. I don't know if you can see this. So yeah, there are just some flowers right in here. So I think that once these start to open and bloom, then it's harvesting time for early potatoes. And then, so our plan is to harvest this middle row for early potatoes and then leave the left and the right row for storage potatoes for the fall. And yeah, the left variety is like a purple potato, and then the right variety is some type of fingerling, and then the middle is a mix of both. So it'll be good to have early potatoes of both varieties. This is the strawberry patch and garlic patch. The garlic has some scapes on it, which I'm gonna harvest right now. We have the first garlic scapes of the year, which I'm really excited to harvest. I'm just gonna grab these. So you know they're ready to harvest when they turn squiggly like this. I'm gonna put these in a stir fry today. So for those of you that don't know, the scapes are actually the flower. So if you do want to collect garlic seeds, make sure you leave a couple on your plants, and that way you can get some seeds once the garlic flowers. I lost most of my garlic to a deer in the fall last year, so it's not the greatest harvest, but it's something. So we have some tomatoes growing here. Then we have 2 zucchini plants growing. This one, I swear, has grown since I was out in the garden earlier today. And then the squash in this area haven't been doing that well, so I had some cutworms or something that was eating the plants and kind of causing them to yellow. And like, look how crazy this one looks. I'm not sure if that's a nutrient deficiency or some kind of disease, but there's been a lot of ants in this bed in particular. So I actually went to the garden store and I replaced some of the squash that I had. So this one that I just planted beside that one is a pumpkin, a Big Max pumpkin. And then this one is a butternut squash variety called Wallman butternut. And then I had planted 2 Brussels sprouts, this big one here and this big one here. And then I decided to buy some more because, you know, why not? I had this space that wasn't really filling out, so I wanted to make sure that I had something planted in the ground. And then we have some tomatoes and peppers, and we have some nice bunches of tomatoes there. Those are the Sakura tomatoes, which are my husband's favorite tomato. Nice little cherry variety. And then these are the salt and pepper cucumbers, which, I mean, they're not looking so great. I bought them at a garden center, but I didn't harden them up. So I don't know if this is just shock from transplanting, but yeah, they're not looking great. And then this is my sad little corn patch. Some of it is still growing. So I'm hoping this will fill out a little bit too. So same thing on this side, we have tomatoes to start. This is a monster tomato, and something got to it the other day, and they actually like munched around the bottom of the stem, and it was like kind of hanging off. So I just put it back in the ground, covered it with as much soil as I could, and I made sure to water it, and I'm hoping that it's just gonna root from where the cut was and just continue growing. And I'm hoping it continues to grow because look at that monster flower. It's gonna be the hugest tomato I've ever grown. So I'm really excited, and I hope that this plant survives. It's looking really good. It was sad the other day, but so far so good. Then going down here, this is another squash that I bought recently. This is called a honey bear winter squash. Again, not looking great, probably from the transplant. This is called an Iran squash. My coworker just gave this to me, and the leaves are quite large, so I'm really excited to see how big this gets. It's supposed to be quite a big squash. Then we have the beautiful arch trellis. And then this is another one that I bought recently. This is just a G-Star summer squash, so like a patty pan variety. These are Kikuzi squash, which are looking really good. And then on this side, we have the Kajari melons, and then a bunch of flowers in between here. So there's sunflowers, there's cosmos. I think I even put some calendula in there. So my idea, or my plan, is just to have this middle area between the trellises to just be like wild and free. And as you can tell, I wanted to show the realness of the garden. These are no-till beds. It's supposed to deal with weeds, but I don't know how well this method works with grass. So as you can see, these beds are now about, that first bed there is about 2 months old now, and the grass has just completely grown through, and I'm weeding like crazy, but I'm not able to keep up with it. Grass, I think it's called quack grass. It's just so hard to deal with. So I am weeding quite often, but it doesn't even look like I've made a dent. Here are some watermelons and just regular lemon melons, I think. And then this area has some flowers grown or planted and some dill. I've only seen a couple dill sprouts growing, just like right there next to that sunflower. So not a ton of growth yet. So I'm trying to keep this area really moist. So I watered it this morning. It doesn't look like I did though. And then there's some cilantro growing there. But it's been so hot, I don't know if the cilantro is gonna work, but we'll see. Then we have some sunflowers. And I wanted to do an update. So last time I did a video, I talked about the yellowing of these sunflowers. So I treated them with the soil acidifier, and then I also put some kelp fertilizer on the leaves as like a foliar spray, and then I also watered them with the kelp fertilizer as well. And as you can see, the leaves have gotten greener, which is great. They still don't look normal. These leaves are curling. I don't know if that's normal. These are the giant sunflowers. So I'm not sure if that's something that happens with these ones, but I mean, they're still growing. I'm just gonna see what happens with them. Just leave them there. This is another patch of corn. And then my beans are starting to come in here. And then my beets and carrots, which are actually growing in. There's way more carrot action now. And there's a couple more beets. I might sow, I know I just said that I'm not sowing any more seeds, but I might put a couple more rows in just so that I have carrots and beets throughout the season. I just recently planted this asparagus. I just bought this from the store the other day. So, I mean, it looks pretty good. I'm hoping to turn this whole area behind this trellis into an asparagus patch eventually, but that's just gonna be the first one. Then we have the firecracker vines on either side of the trellis here. And then dahlias also. And then these squash are actually starting to trellis up. And a little trick, I'll show you. If you're wanting to grow squash vertically and you're noticing that your plant isn't climbing quickly, or if it's not climbing at all, what you can do is take these little tendrils that the plant gives off and just gently wrap it around whatever you want it to climb, and just tie a very loose knot. Doesn't need to be tight, doesn't need to be a double knot or anything like that, but if you just tie it, it helps give the plant a little bit of leverage and it'll just continue to grow up. So I do that just to get my plants off the ground as soon as I can, because I notice that if they do grow on the ground, you know, they get diseases quicker. And this is one I did yesterday and it's already tight. So this plant will now just continue to grow up. Peppers are looking good. I treated them with sulfur. They're looking okay. Some of them, like this one at the front here. I mean, it looks okay. The leaves are curling. I really don't know what this is, but overall I think they're doing okay, and there are peppers on the plant, so I mean, we'll see what happens. I just harvested my first peppers of the year, so I have these ones, which are the shishito peppers. I've never grown these before, but according to the internet, you should pick these when they're 3 to 4 inches. These ones aren't quite that big, but I think it's because they're the first peppers of the year. They're a little bit smaller, but this one's already starting to turn red. So that means that it's starting to turn ripe, so I think that these ones are okay to pick. And then I also have some padron peppers, which I had in Spain for the first time a couple years ago and love them. So you're supposed to pick them when they're about this big. But these ones here that I picked from one plant are starting to turn black, which means they're starting to ripen. So I picked these ones as well, and I'm gonna saute these tonight and try them. Oops. Try them for the first time. Then down this row we have the lemongrass, which is just growing there. It's looking pretty good. Hasn't been doing too much. I feel like it hasn't grown that much. We have a sunflower, some tomatoes. These are both Berries Crazy Cherry. And there's no tomatoes on them, but this one, as you can see, the flowers are just starting to blossom. More squash. These ones in the middle, those are the Burgess squash, and they are just taken off. They look really good. And once again, this whole area needs to be weeded. That's on my to-do list tomorrow. And then here's my favorite view of the garden. And this here is the flower bed. There's a cool little bug there. Oh, it's gone. So the onions are really taken off. They look really great. I was a little bit nervous for a minute there because they didn't look like they were doing great, but they are in full growing mode right now. The sunflowers are looking great. I feel like we're gonna have sunflowers before we know it. And then I picked my first flower bouquet the other day with some snapdragons and a peony from our front bed, and then this delphinium right here. I'm so excited to see it blossom. We planted this last year and the frost got it, so we didn't have a plant at all, and then this year it just came back and it looks so great. And then some more snapdragons over here, a nasturtium. There are some little baby kale growing too, but I mean, they're not doing much in this bed, unfortunately. I just weeded this and it's already full grown. And there's actually a little marigold growing there. And then last but not least, the sweet potato, looking great. I'm really excited for this. I hope you enjoyed this week's garden video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I hope you have a great week in the garden, and I'll talk to you soon.